So Sunday, the sermon series called God's People continued, and my son Elijah was the mouthpiece for the Lord on Sunday. He preached the book of Ephesians. The title of the message was Unmerited Favor, and I'm looking forward to hearing Russ's thoughts on that message and what else we can glean from the book of Ephesians. So Russ, take it away.
Well, I was looking in Ephesians chapter 3 at verses 17 and 19. It goes like this: "That Christ may dwell in your hearts by faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all saints what is the breadth and length and depth and height, and to know the love of Christ which passes knowledge, that you might be filled with all the fullness of God." And I was thinking, these verses express Paul's want for us to fully understand God's love for us. God's love is the ultimate expression of God's character. It's not based, as we know, it's not based on our worthiness or any standing we've gained with him. It's given freely and without conditions. If we look at 1 John 4:10, it says, "Herein is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his son to be the propitiation for our sins." God's love is not just an emotional response like ours often is. It's a deliberate action that's designed to redeem man and to restore us to relationship with him. It's a perfect expression of love. And back again in Ephesians in chapter 5, verse 2, it says, "And walk in love, as Christ also has loved us, and has given himself for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling savor." God's love isn't self-serving. It's sacrificial. It's motivated by a willingness to be a servant. And it's a sweet-smelling savor, a joy to him, meaning it was acceptable, it was fully atoning, and it's acceptable worship. This is shown in Romans 5:8. It says, "But God commends his love towards us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us." And I was thinking, God commends his love towards us. The word commend means to present as suitable for approval or acceptance, according to the dictionary. God not only offers his love to us, but he also tells us that it's recommended that we accept it. It's a recommendation that tells us that it doesn't get any better than this from God himself. And finally, God's love is a model for how ours should be. Matthew 16:24. "And Jesus said to his disciples, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." And if we split this up, deny himself, be selfless, empty of our own will, surrendering to God. Take up his cross, exhibit a sacrificial love just like God's. Jesus' cross, we know, led him to crucifixion, the laying down of his life. We need to be prepared to go just as far as Christ did. And finally, follow him, become a disciple of his teachings. Paul wants us to, again, understand, the breadth, the length, the depth, and the height of God's love. And these characteristics really show us how deep that love goes, and they give us a model for our own love and how it should be. For our Grace Group verses, I'd like to take a look at the book of 1 John, chapter 4, verses 16 to 21. These talk about God's love and how his love should dwell in us. And while we're looking at these verses, there's 5 questions to answer. How would you retell these verses in your own words? What do these verses tell us about God? What do they tell us about people? What life changes should we make as a result of these words? And who are you going to tell about these verses?
Amen. Thank you, Russ. Your thoughts are quite sufficient, but I have a couple that I have to add in, so my apologies. First of all, I saw Dr. John MacArthur doing a Q&A on video recently, and little guy, couldn't have been more than 10 or 12 years old, stood up and said, we all find sin so attractive. How do we come to the place where our love for Jesus is so great that it removes that attractiveness of sin? What a deep question and good question from a little guy. And MacArthur's answer is so helpful and plain. He said, the better you know someone, the more you can love them. The key is to get to know Jesus better. And of course, the key there is obedience to his word. So as you learn his word and you walk in the light of his word, and you get to know him better, you can't help but love him, and the attractiveness of sin begins to fade. I thought that was a great question and a great answer, and certainly applicable, I think, in this context. The other thing is the word commended. God commended his love toward us. I've heard some theologians talk about that as well, how it just doesn't carry the weight in English that it does in the original language. It sounds to us like God recommends to us this love. I recommend this restaurant. I recommend this love. But the word to be illustrated for us is similar to in a jewelry store when the jeweler takes the black velvet cloth and puts it down to put the diamonds on and turns on a special light. And so he's attempting to accentuate and demonstrate the glory of the diamond through the use of this black velvet background and the light. You still don't get the full magnificence of the diamond. You got to be a jeweler and put that thing in your eye and all that to really understand, what's real and what's not. But you can see the brilliance of the diamond better because of that display, that way of showing the diamond off. And so God demonstrated, he displayed his love toward us in this way. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So you probably already knew all that and just didn't want to spend too long preaching. But anyway, to love him more. His love for us is perfect. Our love for him is not. So grace groups take some time talking about this passage and these themes.